Hello and welcome to another episode of AppStories, a very special episode all about the MacStories Selects Awards. This episode is brought to you by RevenueCat. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. It's award season.
It is. I feel like we're at the Oscars, but we're not in our tuxes, so I guess it's a little different.
I don't have a tux. I'm sorry. I thought about dressing up for this, but then I realized, no, I'm not gonna. Nobody's gonna believe me.
No. There's only so many people watching on YouTube, and look, this is us. This is what you get. You get, us taping here on our computers. Last night, Federico, before we get started, I actually went and saw a bluegrass band doing Christmas music. It was kind of nice. It was nice. I like getting out and doing like these things that are very undigital because, we spend so much time in front of a screen. It's nice to see someone just perform music on a stage in front of you. You know what that's like, I think.
Yeah. This morning, it says something happened to me.
Yeah.
You know how we always get like robocalls from spammers?
Sure.
And I got one. And I have Truecaller installed on my iPhone, which is a third-party spam filtering utility. And I get this phone call, and it's like Truecaller on the lock screen is saying high potential for spammer. And I was like, because we're waiting for a coffee table delivery.
Oh, so you're waiting for a delivery guy to call, yeah.
From a design brand like furniture shop.
Sure.
That we bought online. I was like, should I get this one? Because it was 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I just woken up and I was like, Truecaller is saying that it's spam. Do I want to take my chances? And I did. And it was the delivery guy.
Oh, well, good call.
And they're coming on Sunday. So they're coming on.
Really?
Yeah, they're bringing us the coffee table on a Sunday. I was like, sure, we can wait for you tomorrow. So don't always trust the third-party spam filter, especially if you're waiting for a delivery.
Do they have the Apple one in the EU, or is that one of those features that is
No,
not available?
it's a third-party extension, and we don't have that in the EU, unfortunately.
It's pretty good. I like it a lot. I really enjoy how the notification pops up on my Mac, and I can see the person begging me to pick up the phone when it's a spammer.
Yeah, we don't have that. But enough about our lives. So we're here to talk about the MacStories Selects Awards.
We are.
If you're new to AppStories or MacStories, this is a celebration of the apps that we love, the apps that we use, that we've been doing for the past 7, 8 years, maybe?
Something like that. I'm losing track myself. I think it was 2018 or 2019, the very first semi-versions.
Initially, we were not doing physical awards.
Right.
For the past several years, we've been creating physical awards that we are going to ship out to the winners, to the recipients of the MacStories Selects Awards, so they can put them on their shelves, on their desks, whatever they want.
There, behind me, Federico. See that box?
Yeah.
There's a lot of handhelds and other things on there too, but that box should go this way instead.
John has the awards.
Those are the awards. Sitting on my couch.
And we have this year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different categories that we are going to give out an award for. And this was a team effort. We have discussed, obviously we cover apps on MacStories and AppStories all year long.
Right.
But every December, every late November, early December, I think it was just before Thanksgiving, we get together with the MacStories team and we have a conversation about making a short list of our favorite apps and deciding who's going to win in each category, what the nominees are, and which apps will be mentioned as honorable runners-up in each category. There's also participation from Club MacStories members. Club members can create an initial short list of their favorites, and then Club MacStories Plus and Premier members in Discord can vote for their favorite. And that goes for the Reader's Choice Award. That is selected by Club MacStories members of all tiers. And in addition to the categories, we also have a Lifetime Achievement Award that we will mention at the end that recognizes an app that's been around as, by virtue of being a Lifetime Achievement Award, needs to be an app that's been around for a while and that we think deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame of iOS, iPadOS, or macOS apps that we've been covering on Mac Stories.
Yeah, it's really almost a vibes app in the sense that it's like, what is an app that has stood the test of time, but has also had an impact on the app world in general?
Yes, yes. So without further ado, John, I think we should get into the categories of MacStories Selects Awards for 2025, starting, this is a big one, with the best new app. And
Yes.
this is always a tough one to select, but I think we landed on a really good choice.
I think we did. I'm going to just blurt it out right here. Our best new app of 2025 is Quick Reviews by none other than Matt Birchler, one of the co-hosts of Comfort Zone here on Mac Stories.
And right there, we need to put a disclaimer.
We do.
Matt had no idea that we
haven't talked to him or any of his co-hosts about this.
We haven't talked to any of his co-hosts. We haven't talked to any developers in this list, in fact.
No, that's
this
true.
This has been completely and honestly picked by me, you, Devon, and Jonathan. And we had many, many conversations about which best new app to select this year. And I think we collectively landed on Quick Reviews for all the reasons that John will mention.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about Quick Reviews is it's exactly what the name says. It allows you to do quick reviews of movies and other media that you can post on social media. And what to me makes this like a quintessential Mac Stories app is the fact that it's got a beautiful design and it's a very focused utility that focuses entirely on the act of reviewing some sort of media, making that simple, but also making it beautiful and making it easy to share. And I think sharing is another big element of why this app works so well. And, Matt, this app started its life out as a web app.
Really interesting story. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Matt it had been a utility on the web for quite a while because that's kind of Matt's background more, I think, than iOS development. But he started dabbling in iOS development and brought the app to iOS, which I think really has put it in the hands of a lot more people than it ever was in. I mean, I haven't actually asked Matt that, but I feel like I know I was aware of Quick Reviews before it was an iOS app, and I had used it, but I've used it a lot more since then. I think it's a fantastic app and deserving of our best new app of 2025.
And I think what's especially nice about it is that, in this age, it's the kind of utility that is focused, that is made by a new indie developer for Apple platforms, and that is focused on people enjoying art made by other people, which is kind of rare.
It's got a positive, right? It's a positive spin that can be shared on social media. And I think that the thing that's too easy on social media is to share hot takes and complaints and gripes. And with Matt's app, you can share things you love, which I think really makes all of social media a better place for everyone.
Yeah, we need a little bit more of that in the world in general.
We
do. Congrats. Quick Reviews for being the best new app in 2025. We have a couple of runners up that we want to mention. And I go first. The first runner up is Whisperflow for iOS. I have mentioned Whisperflow. It's a dictation app. Started on desktop on the Mac as part of this new generation of dictation apps powered by large language models, by AI. And Whisperflow on iOS specifically, we wanted to pick it because it's the best dictation experience that you can get on iOS right now as a custom keyboard. That is the key differentiator for Whisperflow compared to other dictation apps that continue to be desktop only. Whisperflow is everywhere. And that means that you can carry with you your custom dictionary, your statistics, your custom history. It follows you around thanks to your Whisperflow account. And it is one of the best examples of a custom keyboard that I've seen in many, many years on iOS.
I would say it's the very best one I've ever seen. I think that it's not easy to have this kind of app translate well onto iOS just because of the system restrictions. And I generally don't like to install custom keyboards, but Whisperflow, I think, has such a good one that I've got it installed and like it a lot.
Yeah, and the way that it works, where you switch to it and it kicks you back to the previous app, but it keeps a live activity running so that the app can continue listening when you dictate. super good. The dictation is excellent. And yeah, that's one of our first runners up for best new app in 2025.
That's right. And our other one is Activus AI, which is an app that I just reviewed just a little over a week ago, which is a way to visualize your health app statistics. The health app collects all kinds of vital signs and health and wellness type of statistics, but it's not always the best at visualizing those and giving you a feel for where you are in kind of your fitness journey. And with Activus, it has these incredibly beautiful and very modern liquid glass designed graphs that paint a picture of where you are in a bunch of different categories, and then uses just kind of what I call the sprinkling of AI to give you an explanation of what that means and where you kind of stand on those statistics. Not only does it have these graphs, but it has a second tab, which is its Activus AI, which is kind of like a chatbot, but instead of asking it just random things, it has predefined questions, which are backed by complex prompts that are designed to avoid hallucinations and other issues that might feed you misinformation, which obviously is a concern if you're using something with a health and fitness app. And what I like about it is that you can get an overview that kind of gives you a sense of all the different categories it tracks and how you're doing. But you can also ask these specific questions that are predefined and get a simple paragraph that explains where you are on that one question. It's a fast and easy and really understandable way to get a better sense of your health and fitness.
Yeah. So that is another excellent app debut for 2025. Okay, so it's time for best Mac app, and
yeah,
this one's a doozy.
It is. It's a Finder replacement called Bloom.
Oh
and
my
this
God.
is
This is all John, folks. He really advocated for this one.
I did. I made my case and everybody got on board because Bloom is the first Finder replacement that I've used that has stuck. And the reason it's stuck is that it's a native app that is very reminiscent in many ways of the Finder, but it has a lot of advanced features kind of tucked away in a way that you can kind of discover over time and make part of your workflow. Probably the biggest thing that most people will notice right away is that it's got a dozen different predefined panes that you can set up, pane setups where you can have a single pane all the way up to 4 quadrants. What I like to use a lot of times is the 3-pane view, where I can have kind of a longer pane on the left and 2 smaller ones on the right, which I find very helpful when I'm dealing with a lot of files and podcast production and things like that. But it goes way deeper than that, because you can everything can be defined with a keyboard shortcut. Everything is Apple scriptable, so there's a lot of automation options there, even though it doesn't support shortcuts directly. And it has something called the portal, which is basically a mini floating version of one of the windows in Bloom that strips away a lot of the UI, so it's small, but it floats and allows you to use it like a shelf app, something that, boy, at MacStories, we've got a long history of talking about shelf apps. And so this is, in fact, a shelf app for the Mac. I was surprised that this stuck for me, but it is so well designed and it's so frequently updated with new features. And it does all kinds of stuff like let me just take a folder and open it in the terminal with a keyboard shortcut, which, is really good. And the search is lightning fast. So yes, Bloom is our Mac app of 2025.
Incredible story. I just love that we're picking this app. We have a runner-up in this category, and that is Supercharge by Cinder Soros. Supercharge is, let me describe it this way. You know how macOS can be almost infinitely tweaked? There are so many hidden settings, hidden options. Some of them that require terminal commands, shell scripts, and all of that. Imagine a single utility that bundled all of those secrets in a menu bar app and in a settings window. That's what Supercharge is. There are so many macOS tweaks settings and quick shortcuts that you can enable in Supercharge, it's kind of ridiculous. Hidden files, centering the mouse on a display when you wake a connected display, quickly toggling system dark mode. I'm just going through my list in the menu bar. Capturing text, scanning a QR code, muting the microphone is one of the supported shortcuts. You have settings for Windows, like enabling the behavior where if you want to quit an app, you need to hold Command Q so that you don't accidentally quit your Windows by randomly hitting Command Q. Unminimizing all windows when a specific app becomes active. There are so many settings in Supercharge that it truly supercharges your Mac. And it can be a little overwhelming at first, but if you are a power user, if you are a Mac power user, shout out to Steven. If you are a Mac power user, this app gives you so much freedom, so many options that it's kind of incredible how it all lives together in a single package. So that is our runner-up for best Mac app in 2025.
I wrote up this section for the article that we did, and my advice to everybody is install Supercharge, pick out 2 or 3 things that you want to use, but revisit it every now and then because it's a long list, and you'll inevitably find more things that you want to use over time as your workflows change. There's also something in the settings, Federico, that I love a lot, which is there's a utility for figuring out if you have keyboard shortcut conflicts. Because with all the apps that we install, I inevitably end up with those. And that app allows me to sort them out and fix what's going on.
Yeah.
This special MacStories Selects episode of AppStories is brought to you by RevenueCat. If you've ever tried adding subscriptions to your iOS app, you know the pain. StoreKit is famously difficult to work with, and Apple's documentation, let's just say it's sparse. And if your app is cross-platform, normalizing subscription data across different stores becomes a nightmare. That's where RevenueCat comes in. They have a dedicated team of engineers who track every change that happens in the App Store and Google Play Store, so you don't have to. Instead, you can focus on what actually matters, building features that your users care about. RevenueCat makes implementing subscriptions incredibly easy with their simple-to-use SDK, robust back-end infrastructure, and exceptional documentation. Plus, their paywall builder lets you design beautiful paywalls in a web editor that render natively in your app using Swift UI. And here's the best part. Because these paywalls are powered by RevenueCat's backend, you can update them for special sales or run A/B tests without waiting for app review each time. Once you get set up, RevenueCat's suite of growth tools will help you take your business to the next level. And get this, RevenueCat is completely free to use, up to $2,500 a month in tracked revenue, making it extremely indie-friendly. I also want to give a quick shout out to Charlie Chapman's podcast, Launched, which is now officially a RevenueCat podcast. On Launched, Charlie interviews app developers about building and launching their apps into the world. If you're listening to AppStories, I think you're going to love it. RevenueCat is the easiest way to add in-app subscriptions and native paywalls to your mobile apps. And getting started is free. Learn more at RevenueCat.com. Again, that URL to learn more about this terrific service for indies and all developers is RevenueCat.com. Our thanks to RevenueCat for their support of AppStories.
All right, it is time for the best watch app. This is a category that Jonathan handled for the MacStories Selects article, and the best watch app for MacStories Selects 2025 is Athletic. Now,
Yes.
Athletic is an app for, it's described as a fitness guide, a comprehensive fitness guide. And it's the kind of app that is designed for people who really care about working out and exercising with their Apple devices. And it kind of takes HealthKit and workouts to the next level. It aggregates in a really beautiful UI the kind of statistics with the kind of advice, really practical advice that the fitness app or health they don't necessarily provide you with by default. Athletic, it gives you, for example, the key feature is the recovery feature,
Right.
where it gives you a percentage, essentially every day, showing how well your body is prepared for a workout. And it takes into account all kinds of metrics, like your resting heart rate, your sleep score, for example. And it sort of builds this comprehensive picture of how exactly your body is handling your daily exercise, your daily workouts, and how it's responding over time to your previous workouts. And on the watch, it's all presented so nicely. It is
Yep.
one of the most feature-rich apps that I've seen on the watch, which is kind of incredible how the developers were able to pack so much information on the tiny screen of the Apple Watch with a beautiful UI that is not overwhelming. It's not confusing. It's all presented very nicely, takes advantage of all the latest watchOS 26 design updates and APIs. Truly, truly remarkable. The kind of app that we're giving out an award, but it's truly the kind of app that I think should be part of the system, should be made by Apple. And it's not. It's not made by Apple. It's an indie app that is doing all the right things that Apple should be doing for people who are really serious about exercise, working out, and tracking their results. So, I am not that kind of user because I am not too serious about my workouts, but boy, am I impressed.
Yeah, it is very impressive. I mean, I think the fact that there still to this day are not very many watch apps that go to this depth is kind of remarkable. And it's not, I don't think, easy to build a watch app that has this kind of interactivity and being able to work standalone and all the different things that this app can do. That it's definitely deserves to be recognized as the best watch app of the year.
And what's the runner-up, John?
The runner-up is a Federico favorite, I think. It's MBrowser.
I love it.
Which puts a little tiny browser right on your watch, and you might ask, why? Well,
why not? Is the
why
answer.
not? And it can be handy to be able to look really quickly. We can look and see, did Federico post the thing he said he was going to post a half an hour ago? That kind of thing. You're not going to do all your browsing from your wrist, of course, but there are websites that you want to be able to reach easily, even when your phone's not in your pocket. And MBrowser lets you do that right from your watch.
Yeah. So congrats, MBrowser, for being a runner-up. It is time for Best New Feature.
Yes.
Which we are combining this year. We used to have Best App Update and Best New Feature as separate categories. We're combining them into one because we realized, hey, it's essentially the same thing.
It kind of is.
The Best New Feature for MacStories Selects 2025 is the text-to-speech engine in Matter, the Read Later app. I went back to using Matter because of this feature. The ability to listen to your articles saved in Matter is exceptional.
It really is.
The folks at Matter, they did not make the voices, the AI-based voices that they're using to power this feature, this ability to listen to an article as if it was an AI podcast of sorts. But they made, as we argued during our meeting, they made the business decision to implement this technology, unlike other companies that have much lower quality voices that make the experience not pleasant to use, honestly. They made the decision to use them, and they made the decision to implement them the way that they did in the Matter UI, which has been updated for Liquid Glass, is one of the best Liquid Glass updates that we have seen in 2025. And Matter, when you listen to an article now, it kind of looks like Apple Music. It uses the same collapsible top bar at the bottom of the screen. They have a floating player at the bottom. You can tap the player to go full screen. You can choose between multiple voices. You can set a default playback speed. You can do like I do, listen to everything at 1.5x or 2x. And this feature... Yes, this feature has allowed me to finally make a dent in my reading queue in a way that wasn't possible before. And more often than not these days, I'm either listening to a podcast with real people or I'm catching up on my read later queue in Matter when I'm doing something else by listening to an article that I've saved in Matter. This feature is so well done. I have no idea which provider they're using. I'm guessing that it's Unreal Voices, but it's a better implementation of Unreal Voices than in other read later apps. So I don't know what the secret sauce in Matter is, but they did it. This feature is exceptional, and it is the best new feature in 2025.
Yeah, I also appreciate that they didn't throw everything but the kitchen sink at this feature, because I've used a lot of apps that have too many voices, and usually half of them just really aren't very good anyway, and so then you have to kind of remember and figure out which are the good ones and which ones aren't. These are head and shoulders above any other ones I've tried. You're absolutely right about that. One of the things that I've found that I really like about this is that it's gotten me out of the house to work more, because sometimes I would say to myself, "Oh, I don't want to go walk down to the coffee shop. I'm going to end up wasting the time walking there and walking back." But now I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something while I do that, because a lot of times I'll catch up on my queue and listen to a couple articles.
Yeah.
All right, Federico, one of our runners up today is none other than Bridges by Jonathan Ruiz. Now, Bridges has been around for a little while, but in the past year, Jonathan added for version 2.0 a laundry list of shortcut actions that really take this app to the next level. Bridges lets you save links and reuse them. There are other apps that do this, but what Jonathan's app does, which Bridges really, I think, perfects, is having a lot of different ways to different formats for your links to take, whether it's Markdown or HTML or just kind of like a plain text link. There are every kind of format you could even imagine in the app. But now with the shortcuts, you can work all these into your shortcuts, which I think really changes the game for this app, because before you would have to go into the app and that was fine, but sometimes you don't want to have to do that. Sometimes you just want an action that can transform a URL for you into another format. And as someone who deals with lots of, show notes for podcasts and things like that and articles, it's absolutely fantastic to have these shortcuts available that can transform URLs for you. So that's why we picked it as one of our runners up.
Yeah. And we have another runner-up in this category.
We do.
And that is the MCP integration in long play.
So good.
This is part of the reason why I've decided to use Apple Music again. Long play has been around for a long time. We reviewed it multiple times on MacStories. It's a companion utility for Apple Music that is focused on listening to entire albums instead of algorithmic suggestions or playlists. You sit down, you have this beautiful grid view of all the albums in your Apple Music library. You double click on one and you start listening to an entire album start to finish, as it used to be when I was a kid, and as it used to be for you, John, when you were purchasing vinyls, I'm guessing,
yes,
in the 70s or something.
Not quite that long ago.
In the 80s, in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 80s.
In the 80s.
John was buying all the vinyls for REM and Prince, or I'm just
Psychedelic Furs.
Nice. Okay.
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Nice. Okay.
Lots
okay.
of good bands.
You listen to entire albums in long play, but with this MCP integration, the developer Adrian Schoening I think it showed the kind of vision for an indie developer to know that software is changing, right? And it's not enough for apps to just be apps anymore. Apps need to be, and I'm going to talk about this when I talk about our app of the year. These days, we believe at MacStories that apps need to be part of a bigger picture, of a bigger workflow. They need to be part of the operating system. They need to have integrations. It's not like 16 years ago when I started MacStories, where the app was just the icon that you clicked on your home screen. Right. Now, an app can take multiple shapes and forms. It can be, as in the case of Bridges, a series of shortcut actions. It can be a widget, like Widgetsmith on the lock screen, a previous recipient of a MacStories Selects Awards. It can be a controlling control center. And in this case, what you can do is you can very easily install an MCP connector in Claude, and that will allow you to have natural language conversations with Claude, asking questions and finding albums, collections, and controlling media playback in long play. And effectively, this enables you to have AI conversations with Claude against your Apple Music library. So you will be able to find albums, find collections, and dive deeper into your music library just by using Claude and just by using natural language instead of having to use search parameters or filters or stuff like that. And it shows a new frontier for this kind of hybrid automation that is not deterministic anymore, but because of it, can be used in more and different contexts. And I am really, really impressed by the long play MCP. And it's a runner-up in for best new feature in 2025 because of that.
Yep. Now, Federico, we are going to turn to design. Obviously, a very big category this year, given the liquid design. And I'm going to let you introduce our winner.
We've seen many apps obviously implement liquid glass, and we've seen liquid glass as a spectrum this year, right? There's been the developers who have done the bare minimum to
Yep.
almost, sometimes you can tell when a developer begrudgingly adopted liquid glass.
Yes.
And there have been developers who have embraced liquid glass and who understood liquid glass at a fundamental level, like Matter, for example. And those are the kinds of developers who tapped into the strength and the liquid nature of liquid glass to make their app UIs stand out and to make them more flexible because of these compact UI elements. And when we took a look at the entire landscape, we realized that the best implementation of liquid glass that we've seen this year and the best design is SQL, the media tracking utility, which with version 2.6 earlier this year adopted liquid glass and made the entire SQL experience better because of it. At a very basic level, SQL is better thanks to liquid glass because of the new compact tab bar at the bottom of the app.
Right.
Previously, used to be that it didn't make sense with the iOS 18 design language to have a top bar with just 2 items at the bottom. Now,
Right.
thanks to liquid glass and the pill-shaped top bar, it made sense for SQL to have a top bar with just 2 items. And that simplified navigation while still keeping you grounded in the context of the view that you're looking at in SQL, whether it's your wish list or a specific section. And it also helps that SQL, being an app that puts the focus on the media that you're tracking, the video games or the movies or the TV shows, the liquid glass aesthetic and UI allows that content to shine through and to give the entire app a unique personality that changes depending on what you put into your SQL library.
Right.
And I think all those things together, liquid glass and these compact UI elements, making the app, giving more room to the content, while at the same time simplifying the navigation. That was a unique combo that made us appreciate SQL, but also made us realize how, for all the controversy that we've seen for liquid glass this year, there have been developers who fundamentally understood liquid glass and took advantage of it. Rather than complaining about it, rather than doing the bare minimum, they wholly embraced liquid glass, and SQL 2.6 did, and which is why it's the app that's winning best design for MacStories Selects in 2025.
Yeah, I think what's unique, what I feel like is unique about this app and why we gave it the award is that liquid glass really elevates SQL in a way that wasn't possible before. And you don't see that with every app. You don't even see that with all of Apple's own apps. I mean, I think Remain has out-designed Apple in some respects, at least some of their apps, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. And I love using the app. Our runner-up for this category, Federico, is a little different. It's not boring camera, because design can be about fun too. And what's unique about Not Boring Camera, like a lot of the apps by Not Boring, is that it is functionally makes your iPhone look like a camera itself. It's brightly colored. You can do all the camera stuff you can do, but you can do it while also feeling like you have a point and shoot camera in your hands, which to me just makes it a little more delightful than a lot of other camera apps, which are a lot of times very technical in nature. Whereas Not Boring Camera has the features, but it also has the fun. So that's why we gave it the runner-up this year.
Yeah, they really don't make apps like this anymore, and the entire Not Boring suite of apps is really, really quite unique on the App Store.
It absolutely is.
Okay, John, we're getting to the end.
We are getting closer to the end. We are going to start with the Reader's Choice Award. And as Federico mentioned, this has been picked by a combination of all of our Club MacStories members. And for me personally, as the person who kind of sets up the voting process and watches the nominations come in and then watches the votes as the deadlines approach, it's always exciting to see what has kind of like captured the imagination of our readers over a particular year. Because a lot of times that is a very recent app, because obviously there's like a recency bias to this kind of thing. It's something that,
Yes.
made a big splash. This year was different, which I really found fascinating, because this year's winner of the Reader's Choice Award is none other than the launcher app, Alfred. And Alfred,
We were not expecting this, I
we
should
weren't.
say.
We weren't at all. And I think I have an idea of why that is, Federico. I think that the launcher category has really had new life breathed into it in the last few years. First with Raycast, that has won an award from us in the past. And then with Apple, with macOS Tahoe, expanding the capabilities of Spotlight. Because Spotlight is quite good now. But the thing is, it's like a typical Apple feature, which is not a bad thing. It probably covers like 80% of the market. And for a lot of people, I think they try it and they're like, oh, this is really good. But there's these things I can't do. And that's when they start looking around. And they start looking around and they find Alfred. Alfred's been around since forever. I mean, it was out there. It kind of like was in one of the first waves of launcher apps, probably the
Oh, yeah.
earliest. The earliest was like Quicksilver, way back in like,
Quicksilver, then Launch Bar, and then Alfred.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And Quicksilver went open source and has kind of faded into the background at this point. But Alfred has stood the test of time. It gets actively developed, and it's one of those apps where you can use it to do the simple stuff like just launching your apps. But this category has gotten to the point now where calling them launcher apps is really kind of a misnomer, because they can do so much. I mean, you can launch shortcuts, you can do all kinds of scripting, and Alfred actually has its own workflow type of system built right into the app, which I think is why a lot of our club members really enjoy this app, because it's so flexible and you can go so deep in the ways that you can basically program it to do what you want, that it's really limitless in terms of its flexibility, which makes it the perfect choice for a Reader's Choice Award. It's tried and true, it's flexible, it's got automation built in. What better app for a MacStories Reader's Choice Award than Alfred?
Yeah, I am so happy to give out this award to the Alfred folks. They've been working on this app forever. They're friends of
Yeah.
MacStories, and I also think that a lot of our readers, they don't maybe necessarily like how Raycast, for example, and other launchers are going all in on AI and
That's true too.
becoming more of AI launchers. Not to say that Alfred is anti-AI, but it's got more of that, I'm gonna say, artisanal vibe to it. But it's like it still has. I will say this. It still has one of the most interesting workflow UIs for putting together a custom workflow with a grid view where you connect all of these different blocks together.
Yep.
I am going to try Alfred again because of this award and because of our readers' recommendations. So, yeah. Okay. The last two are mine, John, and you have a runner-up in the middle. App of the Year. So before I mention what the App of the Year is, let me just say this. It's obviously, App of the Year doesn't mean Best New App, because we have a separate category for that. The App of the Year award, I think it tries to capture a few things. Obviously, it needs to be an app that we use on a regular basis.
Right.
Obviously, it also means that it's the kind of app that is frequently updated for new operating systems. And it also has to be an app that is not, I think, afraid to embrace how making software for Apple platforms is changing. And we mentioned this a few minutes ago, like the idea of an app is fundamentally different today from what it used to be many years ago. And I personally, this was my pick when we got together and we talked about this. This is the kind of app that came out 13 years ago. I wrote my first review for this app on MacStories in 2012. And what's impressive about this app is that it has both completely changed from the first version, but also it hasn't. And the MacStories Selects 2025 App of the Year is Drafts by Greg Pierce.
Congratulations.
Drafts by Greg Pierce started in 2012. I remember the tagline was "Where Text Starts."
Right, still is.
Still is, and it used to be this simple notepad. It opened,
Yeah.
all the way back in iOS 6, 5. It
Something
opened,
like that.
was a single window with a text field on your iPhone, and you typed something, and it had, this was pre-extensions, pre-shortcuts. You could share that text to the clipboard, to messages, to Twitter. And it was that. It was just a simple text scratchpad.
URL schemes, obviously, one of the,
One of the
involved
Greg was the inventor of
Yeah.
X callback URL.
This was before short workflow. This was before there was even a file system in iOS.
And here's the thing. The developer Greg Pierce, a single indie developer who's been working on this application for the past 13 years. We're getting all together, Greg.
All of us are, yeah.
But the thing that is impressive about Drafts is that it has both grown so much, but it also has stayed true to its roots. You can install Drafts from the App Store. It's still gonna open. It's a text field. You type something, you share it. You don't have to care, if you don't want to, about any of its advanced features.
Right.
But boy, are there advanced features in Drafts.
Yeah.
And we've covered all of them over the years on MacStories. The integrations with shortcuts, widgets, controls, dictation, iCloud sync. It's now available on the Mac. A share sheet extension in Safari. JavaScript actions, URL schemes, obviously. But the thing is, and the reason why I advocated for Drafts became unintentionally for me the best example of what can be done with AI this year if you're not a programmer, but you want to turn an app like Drafts into a highly customizable work environment for you.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I completely transformed Drafts into the equivalent of Obsidian, for me, a highly customized text editor that is, unlike Obsidian, super native to Apple platforms. I vibe coded, thanks to Claude, a collection of actions that take advantage of all the built-in JavaScript libraries in Drafts. Drafts has libraries for custom iOS interfaces, integration with Todoist, with Notion, with Google Drive. And I essentially turned Drafts from a simple scratchpad into the kind of text editor that allowed me to produce and edit the iOS review inside of it. Imagine that kind of scope, right, for a project. My iOS and iPadOS 26 review, I edited it and compiled it entirely in Drafts, thanks to custom actions that I created. And that, for me, is the reason why Drafts is the app of the year. Not only because, obviously, it was updated for Liquid Glass. Looks great, thanks to Liquid Glass.
Yeah.
Supports the new dictation engine in iOS 26. But the shape-shifting nature of Drafts means that it's the kind of app that can be both opinionated, but also not afraid to let you customize it however you want to, right?
Right.
And it becomes this sort of environment where you can have a version of Drafts throughout the operating system. You can have Drafts on the lock screen, on the home screen, in shortcuts. You can tie Drafts to the action button. You can have Drafts on the Apple Watch. You can have it on the Mac. You can have it in the menu bar. And this is what an app should be on Apple platforms in 2025. Not just a scratch pad that you tap an icon on the home screen and it launches. It can still be that if you want to, but it can also be so much more. And when you combine that with what you can build thanks to LLMs now, which are pretty good at JavaScript, it turns out, you
Yeah.
essentially every, drafts for me is completely different for what drafts can be for John, for what drafts can be for Devon, but at the same time, it's still the same app made by a single developer who started working on this in 2012. And here we are with new features for iOS 2016 drafts. For all those reasons, Drafts is our app of the year in 2025.
Yeah, congratulations to Greg and Drafts. It's to me, it's that contrast. It's that duality of the flexibility with the continuity going back so many years. Because I can open up Drafts today and I can scroll back and I can find things that I wrote in
Yeah.
whatever it was, 2012 or whatever, and it's still there. The things that I set up back then are still set up now. It's had that kind of continuity and ability to move forward while at the same time evolving with the times, which I think is really fantastic.
We have a runner-up.
We do. And it's athletic, which we've talked about a little bit already, because I think that one of the things we're starting to see emerge with health and fitness and wellness type apps on iOS and iPadOS is this move away from simply collecting statistics and displaying them in a list or whatever simple kind of environment, and doing the kind of combination of different kinds of data together in ways that are meaningful to the users. And Federico did a good job of explaining, how the recovery stuff works. It doesn't just take into account one statistic that's being collected by your Apple Watch. It takes into account several and gives you a score that you can do something about and explains to you why that's important, which I think is becoming more and more important. And I expect we're going to see Apple doing more of this themselves too. And I know that there are other apps out there doing it too. And I think that's good. I think that that's what they're doing with Athletic and doing really the best right now is they are giving people actionable things that they can do based on the data that they collect. So it's not just a list of numbers that comes off your Apple Watch. It's actually some advice and some direction in how to improve your training without hurting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it is time for the last award of this MacStories Selects season. This award is about staying power, and it's about having a unique idea many, many years ago and sticking to it despite an app that has changed ownership over the years. The Lifetime Achievement Award for MacStories Selects 2025 goes to Unread, the RSS client, now developed by John Britton at Golden Hill Software and originally created by Jared Sinclair, I want to say in 2012 also.
I think so. That was a big year when you think back to 2012. We've talked a lot about 2012.
It was a big year.
It
Was a big year. Huge year. Unread is the kind of app that I keep coming back to because there's nothing else like it. There are many RSS clients.
A lot of good ones too.
A lot of good ones on the Mac, on the iPhone, on the iPad. We've mentioned a lot of them over the years, from Reader to Fiery Feeds to NetNewsWire to Lear, but Unread is unlike any of them. Unread was the app in 2012 that sort of pioneered this idea of, I think I used to call them, I have an article on MacStories that we need to dig up, sloppy gestures. This idea of when phones were starting to get bigger. The original developer, Jared Sinclair, had this idea of like, what if instead of having to swipe precisely on a specific point on screen, you could just use your thumb and swipe wherever. And that for me was a revelation for the original Unread. This idea of you open your RSS and just using your thumb, you scroll and then you swipe back. It doesn't matter where you swipe, the gesture is still going to be recognized. And of course, over the years, Jared Sinclair sold Unread, and John Britton, indie developer John Britton, acquired the app. And here's what I appreciate the most here, is that John recognized the quality of the idea and didn't run away from it. And we've seen app acquisitions, right, over the years, and then eventually apps get abandoned or they get completely redesigned. No,
Right.
in this case, you look at Unread today, it pretty much looks almost the same as it did 13 years ago. That includes
Mhm.
custom menus that are not native context menus. It looks completely unlike, and it defies many platform UI conventions when you think about it.
That's true, and I would say fun fact about those, those custom menus is that that's because Unread came out before there was even a share sheet, and so it was a pioneer of the idea of sharing links outside of the app itself. And again, that was based on things like URL schemes.
But here's what John did right.
Yeah,
It didn't just accept Unread for what it was and sort of played the nostalgic card, saying, wouldn't you like to use an app that looked like it was made 13 years ago? No. Over the years, developer John Britton first brought Unread to the iPad and to the Mac with excellent support for multi-windowing, shortcuts actions, we'll get to shortcuts in a minute, keyboard shortcuts, and now in iPadOS, the menu bar, for example.
right.
Launched a syncing service on Red Cloud. Most recently, rolled out custom integration with shortcuts and the ability to log into paywalled websites. When you consider all these things together, Unread is both an incredibly elegant RSS client that sort of removes the chaos from your subscriptions and presents your articles in an elegant, clutter-free presentation. But it's also an automation powerhouse in that you can assign custom shortcuts to specific keyboard shortcuts, for example, on the iPad, and you can run a shortcut that will take custom input from Unread, like the title of an article
Right.
or the author of an article, all kinds of metadata to do something with it. This is what I use, for example, to save an interesting article as an interesting link for the MacStories weekly newsletter. And
Same.
if you save articles to Unread that come from paywalled websites, you can preemptively log into those websites in Unread so that you will be able to read that text in its entirety without having to open a web browser. And I think this is a fascinating story of an app that came out many years ago and it was just on the iPhone, but it was so unique that it would have been a shame to let it go. And this developer came in, acquired the application, stayed true to its design, to its aesthetic, to its vision, but at the same time modernized the app over the years, brought it over to multiple platforms, constantly updates the app for new technologies. And even though it doesn't have liquid glass, it does have integration with things like the menu bar on the iPad and keyboard shortcuts on the iPad and shortcuts and widgets, and it's on the Mac. And so Unread deserves the Lifetime Achievement Award because it's a unique story in the iOS, iPadOS, and macOS, and in the app ecosystem in general. And it deserves the award because it's not often that you see two people, in this case, see an idea through over the years instead
Yeah.
of just abandoning it after a while.
Right, right. It's absolutely a timeless design. I think that that is the core of what Unread is. But even if it were a timeless design, if it hadn't evolved over the years, I think people would have left it.
Yes.
Instead, I keep coming back to it, and I use it all the time now, and I have several of these custom shortcuts tied into it. And that what's interesting to me too is, there's so many apps now that still try to silo you and keep you all your stuff in their app and not let it escape. That's not the case with Unread. In fact, the fact that it has this custom shortcut integration is what keeps me using Unread as opposed to another RSS client. So it actually, that sharing ability is what's keeping me there, not that it's designed to somehow create friction from leaving the app, because it becomes part of a bigger workflow for me. And yeah, I think this was one that to me was kind of a no-brainer. It's absolutely a fantastic app, and it's really stood the test of time.
Yeah. And that's MacStories Selects 2025.
That is. Wow, Federico. Well, that's a lot of fun. It's always exciting to do this, and it's a great way to kind of wind up the year at MacStories and on AppStories. We're going to be back with another episode next week.
A quick thing.
Yes.
I just want to say thanks to all the readers, all the club members who helped us pick these apps, and I want to say thanks to all the developers who get in touch with us every summer, every September, during the year, to tell us about their apps, to tell us about the features they're working on. And look, it's tough being an indie developer these days. It's tough being an indie creator in general. John wrote about this in MacStories Weekly a few days ago. And we recognize that the times have changed, on the App Store. And what we appreciate about the developers that we communicate with over the years at MacStories is that have you ever played, John, the game Undertale?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a very popular line in Undertale at some point where the protagonist looks in a mirror and says, despite everything, it's still you.
Yes.
And that is what I appreciate the most about indie developers. Like that, despite everything, they're still kicking. They're still doing that. They're still doing it. And
they're doing some of the best work ever these days.
And it's not obvious. It's not obvious that it should be like this, right?
Right.
And yet there's still this is why ultimately I love the iOS community so much, because despite everything, despite all the many issues of the App Store, the politics, the financials of it all, you still have a vibrant community of people who do their best work despite everything. And so that's what we want to celebrate with MacStories Selects.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't be said better. Thanks, Federico.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's it for this week's episode. We will be back next week. I think we should look to the future next week, maybe, Federico. Today we looked back a little bit. Maybe next week we'll do some predictions. But
is it going to be next week? Or is it going to be next year? We still have one for 2025, right?
Yes, we do.
We will look ahead at the next year.
That was my plan. All right. Well, thanks again to RevenueCat. Obviously, a sponsor that means a lot to the indie community. A lot of the apps that we've talked about today and in the past use RevenueCat. And thanks to you for tuning in and listening to the show. Federico and I can be found at MacStories.net. And of course, we're on social media. Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.